Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our Workforce Rewired. We are having conversations around humans and technology at work and have been excited with our list of guests that we've brought to the table to this point. And today, I'm really thrilled to have Gary Salamido, who's the president and CEO of the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce, with us today to talk about the issue that is impacting small employers and the topic around what small employers need in today's business economy. So, Gary, thank you for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Awesome. Well, Gary, we know that your organization touches many of the small businesses across North Carolina, and we know that there's a lot of challenges facing small business in today's economy and geopolitical climate, et cetera. But I want to kick us off by saying, if there's one challenge that we could all collectively address that faces small businesses and small employers today, what do you think is the one that would have the most impact?
Cheryl, it's interesting because Catapult's in this business. At the end of the day, it's always about people. So it's about the retention and recruitment of talent for their businesses. And it has a couple of dimensions to it, but it's all about people at the end of the day. And there's a challenge in housing now, finding people into work in small business, actually being able to have the opportunity to live in the community that they serve. There's childcare, which is a part of that availability and what our talent is looking for and honestly demanding. What are you going to are you going to help me with childcare? Is there available childcare? And one that comes up a lot that we just recently launched something with is, I wish I could provide healthcare for myself, my family, my employees, but I just can't afford it, and it's not available to me. That was one of the reasons we put some work and launched a product called Carolina HealthWorks that's specifically designed for small businesses. So they really, they care about their people, one, because it's themselves, it's their family, and it's their close friends. So their biggest challenge is in a really expensive, not stable world that we live in right now. There's not a lot of certainty. So people are looking to take care of themselves. So that means they're looking at their opportunities. So how do small businesses continue to attract and retain that talent they need that is so important in communities? How do they build communities and how do they make sure that housing and childcare available in their communities for themselves and their employees? So there's a lot going on there, but as Catapult knows as well as anybody, it always boils down to the person.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that you referenced all three of those topics. We have Amy Cubbage from the North Carolina Partnership for Children, who,
Mhm.
is talking to us a lot about childcare and the creative things that employers can do to make childcare more affordable. Certainly have to give props to the North Carolina Chamber for, taking the hold of the healthcare initiative because we have heard from small businesses that that's been a challenge and rising costs, and they continue to rise here this year, making that more affordable. So, the other one that you mentioned is housing, and I wonder, do you think there's anything creative that smaller employers can do to offset the housing affordability challenge so that employers or employees can come to work bringing their full self? You seen anybody creative doing
Yeah. I think we have to look, and step one is for all of us, but particularly small businesses, to get engaged locally, particularly with their employer association, with Catapult, with their local chamber, to some degree with us, and to talk about what exactly their needs are in their local community with their local governments because we have to work closely with our local governments in order to modernize and streamline the permitting processes and all the things that are right now in the way of getting housing in all of its forms available in more communities. We got to look at land use differently, and the best people are the ones on the ground that are using the land that have to live there with it. So I would encourage them to continue to get engaged with their local chamber, feedback information into Catapult. We have a small business council now that offers opportunity to feedback information in, but also most importantly, get active locally with it and talk to your local governments about, how do we streamline things? How do we modernize our permitting and our regulatory frameworks so that we can, put good housing in for people across all different dimensions, whether it be a policeman, a fireman, a nurse, a service worker, someone that has a shop of whatever kind so that you can afford to live in the community you serve. And there's creativity out there. Small businesses are super innovative. They have to be. They have to be really innovative and they have to be really agile. And so the ideas that they could come to our local governments with and other larger employers come together with them, I think are endless. We haven't really seen that kind of engagement among it yet. I mean, the local governments are working on it, but small businesses are the key. They can revamp an entire community.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And you said something about small businesses being innovative and creative. And I think we see that all the time, right? When you don't have the same kind of infrastructure or access to capital that some of the larger businesses do, it forces you to be really creative and innovative. Do you have any examples of maybe your members or organizations that you've worked with that have, kind of created a competitive position for themselves as a small business by being really creative and innovative?
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm gonna get the examples wrong, but we do a coolest things made every year uh, initiative. And last year we started with a small, medium, and large business piece. And what they're doing is they're partnering with each other and they're partnering with larger businesses to do that. So I don't have a specific example to be honest with you, Cheryl, because I'm not I'm getting a little bit older, so I can't remember all the things that I used to remember. But you can't go into a community and look at a small manufacturer that isn't doing something really unique and creative, from putting co-ops together to deal with childcare with it, or partnering with a larger businesses to do that. There's not enough slots available right now. Or are we rezoning things? Some people are looking at rezoning different parts, or can we put a childcare safely on a second floor of a building now that office spaces are beginning to fill up again, but they're still open. So I think a lot of those discussions are going on. I don't have a specific one, but we do hear of different things. I was fortunate enough to serve on the governor's task force on childcare and early education. And man, the ideas that came out of there were great. And hopefully that report will instigate even some more innovation.
Yeah, I think you're right. And when we listen to Amy's podcast, if our listeners listen there, she gives some really great examples of partnering, as you've described, around the childcare need and making it more affordable, right? Particularly through the TriShare program, where
Oh,
employers pay a third and local government pays a third, and then the employee pays a third. So, getting really innovative there. You started out our conversation today talking about the people and the talent and
mhm.
recruiting and retention. And I think it was one of your events that I attended where we heard something pretty creative that I'll probably get this wrong too, Gary, but a motor sports industry employer was now doing a signing day for their apprentices, just like you do for college athletes, right? Making the
Oh, yeah.
trades, a little bit more inviting and celebrating the trades, just like we celebrate collegiate athletes when they have their signing day. And I thought that was really innovative, for that small business to get behind something that was breaking down a stigma around,
Yeah.
going into a particular career field. I'm sure you see those kinds of examples in trades and manufacturing.
Oh man, it's amazing. I had the opportunity to speak at a graduation. It was a combination graduation and signing ceremony with it, and it was for a small tool and die, small manufacturing facility that they were signing someone on that was going to go through the apprenticeship program, someone graduating that they were hiring at the same time. And to see the pride that the parents had, that the local small manufacturer had about bringing in a young person, and how excited that young person was to be part of that and beginning in that career, it was really cool. And it could be someone who's making something, or it could be the electrician that's coming into that place too, or that an electrician that now is going to become a journeyman, a journey person through the different mechanisms that are available to it. And just the excitement is really good, and the pride that the parents have. We're seeing a shift, which is really good. In that it used to be that you were really looked at if you didn't go to a 4-year school They were looked at having a competitive disadvantage or that you didn't quite have what it takes. Man, we're seeing a shift in that right now. Our community colleges are doing a really good job. Our high schools are doing a really good job. There's always more to do. But all you got to do is go to one of those graduations, whether it's one person signing and one graduating or three or four, whether it's Siemens or this small shop, it really makes a difference. And once you see it, then you're all in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as a former educator watching that transition over the last couple decades, I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? It used to be that there was, a little bit of a black sheep of the family if you went trades
Mm.
versus a four-year school. And I think that that pendulum is swinging with the cost of education, with the availability of jobs, and I think AI is starting to change
Mhm.
that a lot for us. There are certain skills like a plumber and an electrician and a welder that artificial intelligence cannot replace.
That's right.
And so, I think that's going to shape the next couple decades of workforce. And I'm curious to know, have you seen AI impacting your members and small businesses in a variety of ways as well?
Yeah, I think it's still a little bit yet to be known. I think people are scared of it, to be honest with you. I think if you could take away all the noise around it, Cheryl, then people would look at it, embrace it a little bit more. I mean, people are experimenting with it, but I think a lot of the noise around it has got businesses being a lot more cautious because they just don't know exactly what the truth is. Now, if you're a bigger company that has resources and you could hire the experts there, you feel more comfortable and you start innovating around it. I think the challenge for small businesses is where's my network of people I know and trust that can help me navigate it, that can help me separate fact from fiction. And for a small business, an investment is a lot more risky because they have a lot less to risk. I mean, they have a lot more to risk and a lot less resources. They got to get it right with it. So I think they're being cautious. They're using it when it makes sense. They're experimenting small until they can get comfortable with it. But I think they're being cautious, and rightfully so. I mean, $10,000 to a small business is a big deal with it. And you can either make or break your reputation. And unfortunately, too, they got to be really careful because people that are on and that are using AI sometimes use it to damage businesses inappropriately, right? Just by a couple words or a bot that or does something. So I think they're being really cautious. And the also the stealing of intellectual property or databases too. Once you get involved with that, the question is are you letting stuff that's going out, are you letting stuff come in
Mhm.
too that you don't want into your systems? And so I think people are just cautious. And as we get more understanding of it, as they network more, again, that networking locally, working with trusted organizations like Catapult who know how to put a good piece of educational programming out there. I think it'll get better. It's important. It'll help them be agile. It'll help them reach more people. I think there's a great opportunity there, but I think caution's a good word right now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We did our 2025 National Workplace Trends report and surveyed executive CEOs around the country last fall. And you're spot on, Gary. The cautious optimism of what 2026 would look like was kind of the overarching theme. And cybersecurity came up, I think, in large part due to the unknown of AI and the risks associated with AI, as you said, right? What comes in? What are you exposing your systems to? Do you have the resources to put the proper governance around it? Can you protect your small business from the bad actors that are out there? And so, cybersecurity was both a short-term and a long-term concern of a lot of executives, and these were all small businesses around the country that, were concerned about that.
Yeah, it's significant and it's rampant, and we've got to watch that. We put appropriate guardrails around it. We're in the policy advocacy business, and so we want to give businesses certainty, and we want to give them a semblance of confidence and safety. That being said, we don't want to stifle innovation either. So
Right.
that policy discussion now that's occurring at the local, state, and national level is important for people to pay attention to. because we want to put guardrails up. We want to protect people and intellectual property. At the same time, we don't want to take a tool away from a business to be able to compete in a safe environment. It's a fascinating time in history that we're in right now, and not just because this is a small business podcast, but small businesses really have the ability to innovate and look at the world differently, unencumbered from perhaps where some medium to larger businesses are, and can be a great asset in doing just that. Well, setting up the guardrails here, but boy, don't take that piece away from me. That can really help me.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they're living on the cusp. They're on the spearhead of innovation in so many ways and can move more nimbly across some of those systems and yet do it in the right way, especially if there's resources available to help them. You've talked a lot about a lot of the pressures that small businesses face, and we started off talking about, talent and childcare and housing, and got into AI. I'm sure a lot of our listeners who are employed are excited to hear that talent is still forefront and AI might take a back seat. Do you see other pressures that small businesses face that either the North Carolina Chamber or Catapult can help them with?
I think it kind of all wraps in, but locally, I think for them, it's the regulatory environment that is difficult because it changes and they don't necessarily have the resources to advocate them for themselves in there. So aggregating small businesses and their opinions and being able to help them understand the regulatory environment, help give that feedback back. That's areas where Catapult and the North Carolina Chamber can be helpful, right? Because you're listening every day to what their challenges are. Also, the Small Business Technology Development Center is a good place to get those pieces of information again, where you can get people together that are in the same spot in their life and exchange information. The regulatory environment, can be really difficult from the local level to the state level. And something that seems like common sense could put you in a difficult position. Now, it probably is common sense, but that doesn't mean the regulatory scheme recognizes that with it. And we got to protect our environment and our water and our air. We got to do all that the right way. But that being said, you can sometimes do something with the best of intentions that can get you in a lot of trouble and cost you a lot of money to get out of. So you got to be really careful and thoughtful and rely on other folks to do that. And on the talent side, it's really interesting, Cheryl, about, I'm in my early 60s now. And when I was growing up, employees didn't, the workplace wasn't really transparent. It wasn't transparent in the benefits. It wasn't transparent in compensation. And I arguably still think it probably, should be kept a little less transparent than it is. But employees now of different generations are much more comfortable sharing stuff.
Mhm.
And it puts small businesses in a really difficult position,
Mhm.
right? Because you can only pay as well as your revenues are allowing and your growth strategy allows you to pay. But someone else may be on a different growth trajectory, and comparing those two things, it's hard to retain talent. And it's because the transparency of the benefits and the comp in particular, as I've talked about that a little bit, and the work from anywhere policies. Well, that doesn't really work for some small businesses
Yeah.
at all. If you're on the Outer Banks and you have a shop on the Outer Banks that's selling whatever, it's candles or it's selling body lotions, you got to show up to make them and you got to show up to sell them. And comparing that benefit structure versus someone who's an accountant is really different.
Right. Yeah, and we've seen a lot of that example that you just raised is uniformity doesn't always mean equity, right? And there's differences in the roles that people play, the organizations that they work for. As you said, if you're in retail or manufacturing or hospitality, it's a little hard to do that in a remote environment versus another occupation that lends itself to remote work. And so helping employers navigate through that uniformity versus equity conversation
Right.
to find some balance where they can provide incentives and perks in some roles and change those incentives and perks in other roles can be a game changer when you start thinking about competitiveness in the small business landscape.
Yeah, I mean, flexibility in the workplace doesn't have to be rigid. I mean, I know it sounds a little weird to say that, right? But you know, works we've seen, for example, in the manufacturing side, people be able to trade shifts when they need to trade shifts, where they're allowing and giving employees that independence and that freedom, also that accountability.
Mhm.
And liability comes with all that, right? So if you get more freedom and you get more ability, there's also an accountability and a liability that comes with that, But we're seeing a whole employers do a lot more of that. So maybe what they can offer on compensation, they can offer some flexibility and say, I'm going to work a third shift this week, and I've switched with Gary because I've got two soccer games that I want to attend, or I got a school event. So if I work third shift, I can make sure I attend both of those.
Yeah.
Or some other, life happens, right? We had this really interesting discussion at a recent staff meeting about, is it work-life balance or is it just life? And things happen in life, and then there's trade-offs and there's decisions you make. So I think small employers are actually more flexible to accommodate when life happens, because life happens every day. And so is it about work-life balance or is it just about life and being accommodating and knowing your employees and working with them and small businesses in particular, it's more than an employee, it's family, both literally and figuratively in many instances. So having that life understanding and being flexible and accommodating, I think are real competitive advantages for our small business.
Yeah. Gary, I just want to end on what you said there because it was so powerful. I was going to ask you for more examples, and I'm looking at our time, like time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what you just said around, the nimbleness of small businesses, the creativity of small businesses, and focusing on the entire employee. I think you really summed up well, and what small employers need and what also small employers can give as a place of employment in today's ever-evolving workplace. I think you did a nice summary of right there. So I want to put an exclamation point on that and say thank you. We may have you back to have some additional dialogue on other topics, but let's put an exclamation point on that and wrap it up.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. I really enjoyed it. I think this is a great service that you all are pulling together for folks. So thanks for including us. I look forward to doing more, and I'll have some examples next time. I'll write them down so my brain remembers all the good stuff that I'm seeing. I look forward to it.
All good stuff. You guys are doing great work there at the North Carolina Chamber. Gary Salamido, President and CEO of the North Carolina Chamber, was our guest today on Workforce Rewired, talking about the challenges and the opportunities that small employers present in the North Carolina landscape. So, thank you all for listening. Catch us on our podcasts every Thursday. We'll hope to see many of you at our conference on coming up in May in Raleigh. And Gary, thanks again for being my guest. Always a pleasure.